I'll let you know when I see the notification. Okay, it's showing.
Yeah. Okay, and we are live. I like my new background now.
Yeah, I'm still trying to get my computer to stop hanging on Chrome.
It's hanging.
It's a bit because I want to open up the thing to see who shared, and then so your friend Tommy shared the video. That's awesome.
Ah, cool. You should share this live stream too.
Yeah, I'm gonna share this live stream lah. So,
Okay, let
hey,
me
can you see on
share the.
undelusional and strength alchemy's comment section?
Give me a sec. Can't remember. Sorry, say again.
Can you share? Can you share on? Can you can you read the comments and on the undelusional side?
No, not yet. My chat is a bit having an issue. Let me try. Okay, let me start the conversation while I get that up. So earlier we were talking about emojis, and the thing that came to me was how can we bring more life into our conversations, right? So the thing that struck me was we use emojis as a way to emote over text. So
Hmm.
text is one thing, right? But when people even have like live sessions like what we're having now, is there a way that we could bring more emotions and get people to liven up and loosen up? So I was having a session with another group. They were talking about a play break.
Mm-hmm.
So they had different ways of connecting, and one of the ways to connect was to maybe create a sound that expresses how you're feeling right now with an action, like yay or
Hi
whatever it
Reggie.
is. So that's one way.
Yeah.
Is someone join us? Oh,
Yeah.
you're looking at the.
Reggie's. Yeah, I'm seeing the undelusional side.
Okay. Hey, we can actually get them to join us on the
Yeah, I'm gonna
Zoom
put the
if they
link in
want
there.
to. So you can put the link there. So guys, I'm trying to get my stream my software to see everyone's comments.
Now it turns into watch parties rather than sharing the actual thing.
It could be a combination of both, lah.
I'm trying to
Yeah.
like the because the time the watch party is like on the other side when it's a watch party, it's a different like it's a different comment section.
Mm.
Yeah, let me just add this link into here. Oh, he left.
You guys, they should have been up earlier.
Wait up.
Okay, should be connecting to the chats now. Yes, I am. Okay, so join us on Zoom here.
Yeah, it
Should
seems like
see in the
every
chat group.
single place I go to, right, the first part would be this.
Okay, I think it's up on the chat group. You should see the link there.
Which chat group?
Both. I mean, you should see it on both your page and my page.
Okay, cool. I'm just sharing this.
Yeah.
Yep, trying to share this. Okay, cool. Yeah, so, okay, let's go back to the topic again, sorry.
Yeah, so we're talking about emojis was a way to emote over text.
Mm.
And as I started to think about it, what is some way that we can connect better with one another, especially over video conference or Microsoft Teams or whatever it is. So, you know, you mentioned about pantry talk earlier, right?
Mm.
So in the past, we could have pantry talk when we walked and we bumped into each other and things like that. Over text, we could use emojis to help create a little bit more pantry talk kind of thing. But how do we create that informal, um, it's almost synergistic? I can't remember the word to use it, but that impromptu conversations where you're able to connect and talk about stuff with one another. that I guess we're all missing out more of now that we're all working from home?
Yeah, I think talking about the casualness, right? Like casualness also comes with language. First up, we talked about that during the video itself. We need to recognize that a lot of the conversations that we go on when we talk about this is that when we're typing, have you ever chatted with a person above 50 or 60 on WhatsApp?
No.
Okay.
Not WhatsApp.
So I got very surprised because the language is very different. Like the way they talk in real life and the way they type is completely different. It's almost like you're dealing with a completely different person. Suddenly they're very cold, not very open, and not very warm. Because like suddenly the text becomes very limited to just words, just concepts. So it creates a limited experience for everybody. Like it creates a certain environment. So like as people who grew up with text, like I did SMS growing up, I did WhatsApp growing up, they all make a lot of difference in giving a certain experience. So a lot of times when we're talking about the chatting, the way we chat, like okay, so the other thing is like some people type in short form. You know, the U become just one U.
Yeah.
Yeah, all these little short forms I don't know rather than anything else. These actually create a little bit more casualness to begin with. Let's start with that first. Let's start with the language side. And then when we talk about emojis, your sticking tongue out, your smileys, your emoticons, all these kind of different things adds a little bit of stuff. And then like recently what happened was that I think last year I started using emojis and GIFs. I didn't use it before. So that for a lot of people was like, oh, this makes you a lot more relatable. Because usually online I talk very seriously. Right? So I usually have a tendency to be quite formal, usually write in full sentences on chat. But then when I write in full sentences and I add a at the end, it gives that little bit of an image, it gives that little bit of a twist. And then the other thing about this is that one thing I really like about adding GIFs is that, especially when it's relevant, when it's something that is able to relate back to what the person's experiencing. Yes, Ariel, you can come join us. Come join us on the Zoom call.
Yeah, can we chat instead of type? So you're talking about informal conversations. I mean, to make the text more informal, right? But even making text more informal doesn't kind of recreate that pantry talk kind of thing, which is very is the word synchronous. So it's not planned. You just kind of bump into one another, and then you spark off a conversation with one another. Whereas in cases like when you're texting each other, we don't often just like, how do you casually bump with someone over text? So usually it's when you have a work setting, you have a work request that you start texting someone. So you don't really have that pantry talk kind of impact to that relationship.
Yeah. So I mean, when we talk about the immediacy and the casualness that is related back to the feeling of, when you talk about the casualness that you're relating back to the pantry talk, right? Again, like the immediacy is not the key part, right? Like even right now, we don't have the direct immediacy. Like we can still have the conversation in a certain manner. It's like the time when so this is interesting. So there are always people who say that there's always one factor that changes everything. Like there was this common topic that in music, there's an oppression of 4/4/0, which is like A is 4/4/0, which is a higher pitch, which means that the sound becomes more tense and everything. And then meanwhile, you have the original A, which is 4/3/2, and everybody says like it sounds a lot better. So it's really interesting, right? So they say that that's the most important thing. But then so when a person did an experiment, so I worked with him to create the experiment, the thing is that the music and the way the music was played was more important than that sound. But if you were to cross compare the two of them, it made a lot of difference. So the thing about this concept of immediacy and the ability to relate to the person directly at that moment gives a certain idea that, oh yes, it's immediate, it's casual, it's whatever. But that's not the most important element of what creates casual. What is the most important part of casual is being able to relate to the person in front of you, being able to feel like the person wants to have the guts down. And that goes back to chill language. That goes back to like writing in short form, or even like haha in the middle, or like smiley face, which is why we talk about emojis, right? Because one of the key parts here is that a lot of times text seems too serious. And unless you grew up in an era where you text all the time, text always seems too serious. Or you're constantly on Instagram with all the stupid, not stupid, but like the funny emojis all across the thing, then you know that that's portraying casualness. So there's this relatability factor that really is at play, and casualness seems to be relatable.
Mm.
Does that
So
make
I was
sense?
thinking, so there's a time and space for all this, right? Like if we were going to go straight into work, then there's very little space for small talk. Where I think that if you do small talk, that's where emojis and all these come in if you're talking about over text, or even small talk when we're doing video conferencing that creates that connection with one another, right? So I guess that also means that we need to purposefully do small talk with one another during this time when everyone is.
Is it necessarily small talk? Is like, okay, as we're having this conversation, is this considered small talk? Are we casual enough? Are we relatable enough?
Well, I think we're relatable to each other, which is good. But also that was built on, we have constant communication with one another. We catch up with each other on different things in our lives. So there's an ongoing thing that
I can agree and disagree.
relationship.
Okay, so recently, right, like as part of the Office Matters, which is what I'm developing, right, we've been meeting a few people, we've been interacting with a few people, and within 15 minutes of meeting them, I can create a casual chat and talk about the person's path, their experience, what they are doing in their lives. It's all about creating the environment for it, like even over video. Like I go straight up, like, so I'm vulnerable with the person, I kind of share the it creates the relatability straight away. And with that space, it creates a certain amount of casualness to the picture. Because casualness is all about lowering guards, right? So small talk is all about not going into the deep stuff. Small talk is all about not engaging on the stuff that are scary. That's why people are comfortable with small talk.
Yet. So it's kind of a ramp up, right? It gives you that ability to move into the serious thing without going too quickly into it. So that's when people then have small talk to get comfortable, build the relationship before you go, hey, the reason I'm calling you is this, that.
Yeah, but actually, so I mean, if we go back to strengths, right? Like, so if you notice, both of us have this word called individualization, right? And one of the key parts about relatability is individualization. I talk to you as if you're you. I don't talk to you as if you're another person. I think that's also one of our strengths, and the ability to relate back to the person. I remember you as you. I remember your experience. I remember your kind of stories. I remember how to talk to you. So that forces me to be able to relate back to you. So like if my focus is having a conversation with you now, it creates a certain amount of focus. It creates a certain amount of attitudes that allows us to really have a relationship that then you feel like it's casual enough. There's not threatening enough. Actually, I think that's the word. Relatability is about non-threatening, like the lack of the feeling of threat, right? So intimacy, empathy comes with that.
Yeah, empathy.
Yes, empathy.
So, I was just thinking, if we look back at the way that we text each other, we don't really do much.
Small talk. We don't do any small talk, dude.
No, I guess we have some small talk, but we don't have a lot of emojis.
I think between the two of us, we can understand from the words. I use more emojis with other people at certain moments, or like because of the usage, right? Because of the function at that moment.
So how do you choose who to use emojis with then? It's like are you not casual with me? That's why you don't use emojis with me, or what?
Okay, think about it. We had a call this afternoon, right? So when we call, I just tell you straight up, like, hey, like that, like that, like that, like that. And I think it's also like, okay, so I think this might be also our individualization at play, because we're not actually consistent. Like consistency is not the most important thing, right? We don't treat everybody the same way. We don't try to use emojis on everybody. We don't try to whatever on everybody. Our goal is to relate it back to the person.
Two Ariels joining us.
No, I think, just let Ariel in, yes.
Hey, I've been meeting him, but
her.
Her? Oh, sorry. I've been messing her. And now it says I have 6 participants.
Participants on the Zoom.
Is she able to join on Zoom?
Hey.
Yeah, it says.
Come on in. Yeah, guys, feel free to come in. Like, we can have this conversation about emojis. The whole point of this session is also to be able to share with everybody, like, this conversation. Yep. So I don't know. For me, okay, about the two of us, we use language actually.
Yeah, let me disable the waiting room and see if this helps them join.
Yeah, then hackers can come in. I'm kidding.
Yeah, man, it's passworded. So, Ariel, you can try joining again. I've actually admitted you, but I see 5 of you waiting in the waiting room. It's kind of strange. There we go.
Yeah, hey Ariel. Yeah, I think she's adjusting some things.
Yeah, okay. I hope the setting works for her.
Yeah, no, but like again, we go back to casualness and we go back to conversations where we focus on being like, okay, so even okay, let's go back to our text, right? Like if I were to, I cannot show some of the text, right? Yeah, because cannot.
No, do not show the text. But I mean, if let's say we don't even look at the details of the text and you're just scrolling through for like emojis, right? That's practically none.
Okay. Hi.
Hi, Ariel.
Hi, Ariel.
Hi, awesome.
Yeah,
Okay,
but
I
we're
don't
also
know
sharing our
for
main video,
shortcut.
yeah.
Yeah, we're just talking about the use of emojis and casualness, and we eventually got to how do we create that casualness and non-threateningness. Oops.
Yeah, non-threatening feeling.
Yeah, the non-threatening feeling with people. So I realized that even though we're talking about emojis, even though we're talking about emojis, yeah, this guy never ever uses emojis with me.
No, I use emoticons. I don't use emojis with you.
Oh, okay. Not even emoticons, my friend.
Really? No, okay. I do a lot of ha 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 ha.
That
Because
is
actually,
not emoji.
yeah.
It's not an emoji or an emoticon.
Okay, fine. I just do a lot of ha 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 ha, I guess. Because my ha 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 is the casualness lah. Hey, ha. Like these are the things. I mean, Ariel you also pretty much know lah. I always type with a lot of ha 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 in there. So it actually creates an amount of casualness. And because if you know me in person, right, you can imagine my ha ha ha.
Yeah, just like that. So, Ariel, do you do a lot of work from home nowadays? You have to communicate with people remotely quite a bit.
Yes, and I think it's a total change of the usual mode that I work, because a lot of my work has always been a lot to do with face to face, because we do training, we do coaching, right?
Right.
So right now, if you look at that whole situation where you have work from home and then you go through emails and then the whole thread of discussion is really just what do you call it that using words. So sometimes I guess it comes back again to also bearing in mind that when you write emails, there's a certain tone.
Yeah.
But that is not exactly the tone that you want to use. So that's where emoji actually come on board, right? Because people like visual, and you want to convey certain emotions, or you just want to nuance it so that it doesn't get read in the wrong way.
Yep.
Right. So do you do so these emails that you're talking about, are they for external people or internal people, or?
I think it's both. So because it's in writing, you also get very mindful about what you write. So that is another school of communication altogether. Because when you write formal email, certain words will have certain connotations, right? Yeah, but then when you're actually typing through Skype, you also want to make sure that it is still official.
Right.
Yeah. So in that sense, I guess it's like when we are writing, we are more mindful, like what Ethan was saying, right? Just now we say that you're more mindful about the person whom you are actually communicating with, and then how would the person actually take that what do you call that, that messaging that you're trying to put across. So you kind of use like the emoji or emoticon in order to nuance it. That's one. But the second part of it is pretty interesting. Is also because we have all studied, possibly quite a few of us, the five languages of love. So and then you also look at multiple intelligence and multimodality, right? So you kind of want to use different modes of visual to get a certain message across. So in that sense, I think that there's a lot of visual media literacy which people are now more exposed to, but not necessarily educated to decipher this whole range of what do you call that, visual messaging that's coming on to us.
And it's interesting, right? You talked about various types of modality. So visual is definitely one. When it comes to audio, well, now there's this short message function, right? Over WhatsApp, we can send a short voice clip.
Voice memo? No, it's not short, man. Like my friend just sent me a like 6-minute one just now.
Okay, I've never had a 6-minute one, but I've got short ones from people who say they prefer not to text. And sometimes I think that if you can't have a phone call with people, a short voice clip might actually deliver the message a lot better than text. Or I don't know, maybe I guess you could do video too, but
it's like it's like radio. It's like your radio. Like you just press the button over. You know.
Yeah. So the voice clips are actually a little bit more informal and could also create a casualness, yet embody the things that we want to communicate through emojis.
To be honest, the voice clips annoy the hell out of me because usually I silence everything, and then if you have to turn on the voice clip, it's like everybody will have to hear it. If not, you have to put it to your ear and everything, which is really difficult, right? So like for me, voice memos, no go, man. And because I do a lot of, I support a lot of people through text. So like the other thing is that I help people even do trauma healing through text. So like I got so good at it that I can like tell straight away what the trauma is, what the issue is. And if it needs to be casual, I know how to re-angle it. If I want to re-angle it in a certain manner, I can like create enough casualness within this. So it's always back to the way that we do things. I like to type in the manner with the ha ha ha, with the hair, with the exclamation marks, with the okay, sure. You know, like that you can literally hear my sure as you read the sure. Like I sure with an exclamation mark, not just a sure, full stop, you know. There's or the dot. There's a lot of question marks whenever somebody does the dot, right? There's always this kind of different nuances that is like, okay, different cultures have different ways of typing it. If you actually type, and even better is knowing now reading Indonesian version of like Bahasa my Indonesian, right? If you try to Google Facebook translate their language, they are so short form, right? That it's literally one letter per word. I could not even Facebook translate. So, but that's their form of casualness. That's their way of expressing casualness.
Yeah, I think the one letter per word thing is more a generational thing than a cultural thing. If you speak to the young people these days, I think you probably get something similar.
Yeah, one letter all the way through LMAO. Yeah.
Yeah, LMAO or even get well soon is GWS or whatever. So it's a string of alphabets that's actually a phrase that somehow only they understand, unless you speak to them enough. And then, so I think it's a generational thing rather than a cultural thing.
No, but it represents casualness. Like you don't, if you say by the way, if I type out by the way versus BTW.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the abbreviations does add casualness.
Yeah, so, do you ever type in those kind of abbreviations on emails?
Usually I don't, but I have to learn how to read because I have two teenagers, right? That's one. Yes, and the people who work with me are also very young people. So I suppose it's like understanding the urban language and also to be able to deepen the conversation in that sense whereby when people actually have that same lingo, then they won't feel that you're really out of sync with them.
Yeah.
So that's what we call about urban dictionary, right? So like in the past, okay, like in my time, we had this thing called MRIC and IRC. So you
I
have
also
stuff
was on that.
like yeah, so you have stuff like right, roll on the floor laughing, and then you have LOL, which kind of still up to today is still being used.
Lola,
So
yes.
so so that's why I feel that English or language is a very um live curation of how a society actually progress, and at the same time how people actually use language. That is something which is very telling. So
Mm.
so whether it is casual, or how do you define non-casual? Because if you look at how work life has actually kind of merged, especially with COVID-19, then people actually need to also be very clear about the boundaries in that sense that they set. Because certain times I do find that maybe I thought that you're very close friends, but it turned out that maybe you're not that close after all, you know. And
Yep.
and that is where this whole knowledge about understanding people, understanding conversation, and knowing how people actually evolve through that big conversation or that small talk kind of become a new knowledge itself in terms of people relationship, in terms of also this thing called social capacity.
Yeah, social
So,
capacity.
so yeah,
Oh,
so
by the
that's
way, Kim
something.
Rita just said hi to you on the Facebook page.
Awesome, right? So that's where I guess we really want to look at it in terms of how do we help people to really improve their social skills, and also to deepen relationships that are meaningful, bearing all this what do you call that inputs, be it verbally or be it visually, right? And even linguistically. So these are things that I guess is a whole new world out there for people to learn.
Yeah, I love the direction that you're bringing this conversation to. So in the midst of COVID and more remote conversation and texting, what are some obstacles that people have in their experience in building that relationship? Or it's even more difficult to do that now, right? So what challenges do you see, and what do you think are some ways that we can approach it now in this climate that we have?
Okay, I can't speak for everybody, but I speak for myself because when we are in the people business, right, you actually realize that we depend a lot on visual cues. That means you actually look at people's expression, you actually look at the way the body language is, and then you read where they are coming from, all right, and when is a good time to actually probe, or when is the time where you deepen with maybe we call it coaching questions, right? Yeah. And then you kind of are able to tell from the tone that maybe certain topics are quite sensitive and you do not want to tread that way, right? So, but when you're doing writing, right, it gets more difficult, and also in terms of challenges, right, then you kind of have to be very careful in how we nuance the question that come after next in order to get the information to do the work better. So that is something where sensitivity, empathy, as well as understanding all that relationship building that doesn't come visually anymore. I think Ethan understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no.
You know, yeah. So this is something that has to I would say learned. So it's a new skill to be learned again, to actually look at what people are writing and what do they actually mean, and how do you then deepen that conversation. Yeah, so when you can't have your visual skills to help you.
So the word that we use in NLP for this is calibration, right? The ability to calibrate the person's expressions, the tone, and all this to know where that person is coming from. So once you kill off, sorry.
So you pace.
Yeah.
Because
so
you can't calibrate, you can't pace, right?
Yeah.
And then you can't lead. Yeah.
Yes. I see. Are you NLP trained too?
She's also.
Yes, no wonder. Okay, so we're able to calibrate with all these cues that we have, right? The facial tone and all this, which all gets eliminated once you have it purely through text, and becomes a lot harder to calibrate unless you know in NLP it's a digital element, right? You have visual,
The
auditory.
digital visual, yes, the digital
Yeah.
visual, because the digital visual actually comes from your IQ. So when you look at your IQs, right, EYECUE, you kind of know when it has actually gone into the emotional part of it.
So
But
for Ethan,
yeah.
it's not IQ how intelligent you are. It's
Yeah, yeah.
IQs, like the cues for your eyes. Yeah.
IQs, yeah. It's IQs, yeah. Okay, no, but I find it very interesting, right? Because, okay, as the youngest person in this room right now, I've had to be trained in texting since I was quite young. And in fact, so back into my secondary school, right? So I depended on MSN, ICQ, and MRSC to find a social life. Like, I'll be frank, like I was bullied quite badly in school. I talked more to girls than guys because I came from a guy's school, and then I felt like a lot of the guys were aiming at me. So I had a lot of female friends, and so majority of my chatting was actually online. So I actually got good at texting because that was my only medium of freedom. Like, because everything else I felt like I was gonna be judged. No. Like, my sister would take the phone. Like, my sister would take the phone the whole time, right? So she will have like 3,000 calls. My mom would have another 1,000 calls, and then I would have no ability to communicate on the front. So internet was my only go-to space. So that's when text became the most important thing, and then SMS, right? Like SMS all night with different people. You hit 1,500 SMS a month, and then you get screamed at by your parents, and then all these kind of different things. Yeah, those were my upbringing. So I was like the savant of like texting. Like, I was always reading people's texts and trying to analyze what they're thinking and everything. But that's also because I was bad with people, right? So text became easier. I was on MUD games. So we call it multi-user dungeon games where you're texting all the time. I was on the MSN. I was on all these different places where I was constantly in the world of text. So for me, text has become a language for me, which is, I think that's why I can convey casualness within it or relatability to it, because I grew up with it. My whole teenagehood was it.
Okay. So I guess in some ways it's like, I know you're more proficient with texting than other people, but for me it's like, if it's purely on text, it's very easy to misconstrue what's being communicated, which brings us back to why we use emojis, right? Because emojis then clarify the tone or the message that we want to have. So I guess maybe even those days when you were speaking to girls, really a master of emojis.
I need to get communication here, like, because communication is number 9, right? So for me, number 10 for me.
You use individualization for communication. I don't know how to point to you.
So communication for me is like, it's all about accuracy of language, right? So this becomes really important for me. So this is something that I think when I text, okay, so the interesting thing is you Freudian slips on text is a lot more obvious. So if you think about it,
if your Freudian slip is a autocorrect
issue, no, it's okay. You can be honest and say it's an autocorrect issue, but there are Freudian slips that are like genuinely like, because it's not Freudian slip meaning it comes out of the mouth. It's the choice of words you put in. So it's like, he's a nice guy versus he's a nice guy. Like, there's all these different things that people unconsciously start putting into their text. That, if you actually do co-reading on text, right, it's actually possible. You actually can see the language. You can see how it's formed. Actually, I just realized, I literally spent a lot of time. So there was this period of time where I think this was 2017, 2016. I was on all the dating apps for a good like 4 months. I was trying it out, right? So I'm just being honest here, right? So open. I can't remember, like that period of time I was on dating apps, and I found it very interesting because like, people always say that people on dating apps are very boring, not very interesting, not very fun, nice to chat with. I never had a complaint. So the ability to converse and create topics on text is actually something that is a learned skill. And I'm fortunate that I grew up because I had no choice. I was a lot more awkward speaking in person than I was on text. So I actually depended on text a lot more. In fact, my texting game was so much better that eventually I realized I had to up my speaking game in teenagehood because I wasn't speaking very well. I was not able to convey my message better.
Yeah, I'm just very amused because it seems like almost all of our live sessions end up talking about dating.
I know. I'm just saying dating apps.
Yeah.
It's. I'm not talking about dating itself. It's a different story. But like dating apps. And I don't know. Like I do a lot of chat on WhatsApp. Like just the other day because I was switching phone, right? Just my apps, my chat app alone, like WhatsApp, the backup was like 3 gigabytes.
Mm.
And most of it's chats, like just words. That's how much I chat.
Okay, so I guess it comes back to well, if you want to be proficient in texting well, you need to text more, right? Because
All the time.
it's part of experience and growing. I think the younger generation probably a bit more proficient with texting, right? Because they probably grew up with it. We only started texting well in revealing our age, but we started pages, right? In my generation, we had pages in school. I don't even know whether people know what pages are nowadays.
I don't even know what pages are. I only know Friendster. Oops.
Do you know what a pager is?
Oh, pager, not pager. Yes.
Yeah, the pager.
Oh
Yeah, that instead of phone, you get a pager.
I mean, I don't know about you, Ariel, but I just want to ask Alex, right? Do you do all that? You know, when you page somebody and you put on the phone and you start pressing 616261.
Yeah, we did that. We did that, and there was sometimes we had all the funny tricks we used to have. So in school, you had those phone
cards.
The phone cards that you use, and there's or even the coin ones. There's a trick to make free outgoing calls on payphones.
Wow.
And we used to do that. So I don't think it works anymore. But in the past, we would dial the number that we want, and then we will key 9999999 as fast as we can until the thing overloads, and it will switch. It will say emergency call, and your call is free for the rest of the call.
This is.
Yeah.
Do you know about this?
Yes. It was a technological hack. Yeah.
In our days, we used to do that. I've tried it. Can't remember, many years back again, just to see if it still works. I don't think it works anymore. Either that or my finger isn't fast enough.
No, nowadays cannot go find pay phone.
And they still have. You go to like airports and whatnot. You still
yeah, but that's airport lah. Nowadays no. But I think it was really interesting the way how pages, like what you're saying, right? Pager actually kind of needed a lot of creativity. I'm just going to be around for maybe 1 or 2 more minutes, then I go for my jog. Right? but it was interesting because when you look at how people actually use the text, right, the numbers, and then they actually manage to make coding out of it. Or they actually have this shared mutual, I would say a mutual understanding of, like, for example, I just did a Google search on pager code. 143 means I love you, right? 121, I need to talk to you. So you end up remembering a lot of all these codes and what are their meaning. You know, almost like
it's like your BRB, BTW.
Yes, right. But then you actually use numbers. So there was just a lot of brain modality going on, right? Because you have to transfer between number code, and then it becomes like a messenger kind of on the other side of the brain. And then after that, you retranslate it and then you text back what you actually want to say.
And in those days, we used to do ASCII code images, right?
And
you draw the stick man and
yeah, then you get Christmas tree during Christmas.
Yes.
And then it's all formed by ASCII code. So that's where this I kept thinking at that point in time then, is that because the way the brain is being programmed, or the people who actually came out with it actually are of a certain way of thinking.
Yeah, they're probably more visual in nature, right? And probably very creative, right? It's like, how can we communicate an image through ASCII characters? And the amazing thing is how they're even able to type it into. I mean, if you had a computer, it's easy to type in. How do you key in those characters until you form?
It's like coding lah. You code, then you suddenly turn to the page. It's like, wow, the whole page is there already. You know, it's the same thing, right? It's like you just write everything out and you expect it to turn out.
Yeah, it's amazing.
But there's a lot of spatial sense in that whole intelligence. You know what I'm trying to say. And how then how did these computer engineers actually do it? they show turtle, hide turtle. I mean, that was the most basic coding I learned. But it tells of a certain way the brain was programmed, and at the same time, this programming actually translated into a language that people actually understood, and then it created that demand for it. So that's why you talk about this whole idea about deepening conversation just now, right? Then there's a lot of meaning making, and there's also a lot of programming that's going on as a society to actually make mutual meaning out of this code that may not seem meaningful to anyone who is not in that circle.
I think that's exactly right. Shared terms in a language. So I mean, let's be frank here, right? The way human brain is made in anthropology, this is well studied, right? That language was created in order to separate between one tribe and the other.
Huh?
So yeah, so every single, why is it that there's so many dialects? Why is it that there's so many, when tribes come out, they do different languages rather than actually try to cross language? Actually, one of the main distinguishing factors to decide whether you're friend or foe is language. Then if you have the language available, then you're welcomed in. We are programmed that certain way. So actually that is exactly it, right? So can you use the person's own lingo to communicate that thing?
And that actually ties back to one of our earlier videos on jargon as well, right? We're talking about creating tribes through the use of jargon.
Yes.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Okay. I shall go for my jog now. I shall join the jog club.
Thanks for joining us.
I'll see you. God bless. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. I need to go for jogs too.
Yeah, no, I think this was a great chat and with Ariel where we really opened up the topic about common language, right? We go back to the common language. Emojis is a common language of certain type of people. And I think that's the universal thing that we are noticing. Like, I mean, I didn't use emojis until much later. You know, like this whole GIF on keyboard thing, right? Like, for the longest time, I did not have a GIF function on my keyboard on my phone because I just use this one called swipe, and swipe does not have that function. So I stopped using GIFs because unless I'm actually on somewhere that actually gives me the accessibility to GIFs. Right. But I've noticed that a lot of my friends love sending GIFs, and in fact, some of my friends love sharing, use certain methods to actually share information with their girlfriends or their boyfriends or whatever. Like they send GIFs after GIFs after GIFs after GIFs, right? Like they don't even need to type a single word. They just GIF after GIF after GIF. It's like the internal language.
Yeah, I think GIFs, because they are visual in nature, it's a lot. I mean, it communicates a lot more, right? They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. And I do use GIFs with friends every now and then. It's like exaggerated ones or funny ones. It creates a laugh. And it's quite fun, actually. So, yeah, that would be... I could send you a GIF with a nodding head.
Yeah, I could do this, yes. No, but I'd rather real person. So I personally, I'm still for in-person conversation, warmth. I mean, of course, we don't have that today, you know, with all the COVID mess. But what happens is that it is still possible to create. I think one of the things is maybe next time I should just invite Gwen from Tribeless or Sean from Tribeless to really talk about how they are doing the empathy circles. So people who feel like they're still empathized by other people over Zoom calls. So they actually feel energized by the process. They actually feel more connected with the other people. I think that's also where it really lies. It really starts also, because I'm starting to recognize that a lot of people don't have the space to think and create the kind of environment where they have that kind of conversations on Zoom, because it's a language on its own. Like right now we're on Zoom, it's a language on its own. Like us having this together makes us separate from anybody who joins in, you know. It creates a certain thing. We talk about strengths, it already alienates certain people. There's a lot of these different things that we can like do to welcome people, for example. Like just now we just said, hey, Eric, just come on in. Statements like this allows that casualness to come in. But then at the same time, there are these markers that actually separate us from others.
Yeah, but anyone can join us in these markers. If they're interested, I can send them a template. So it's just a way for us to also communicate what our talent teams are as we start to talk about strengths. I realized that in these conversations, we didn't talk that much about how our talent teams come in, though at some point of time, we're pointing to empathy, individualization, and things like that. But it's a good way to start to understand why do we speak in certain ways. So for example, I would think that the way you use emojis because of your ideation, could be a lot more creative than mine. Like ideation is number 6 for me. But we could be very creative with emojis if you want to.
I do a lot of random stuff on chat lah. So I'm very predictable, but I'm also predictably unpredictable.
Okay. So yeah, predictably unpredictable.
Yeah, like you will recognize that I'm like, if I do say a certain bunch of stuff or I start with this kind of things, you know where I'm heading with this. Yeah. So I think that's also part of the thing. But I think one of the key parts here is about using emojis. So we go back to this, right? Emojis are like jargons. But it's casual jargon.
In a way, yes, that is true.
I feel like, yeah, go on.
Yeah, so a thought came to my head, right? As just now Ariel was talking about, different levels of casualness with different types of people. And you might think you're very casual, the person doesn't think that you're very casual. And I guess this is also one thing that we do when we do face-to-face. It's about testing the boundaries to see how casual you can be with someone and see how they respond. It's a lot harder to do that over text.
Is it?
I think so. I mean, I can calibrate the person's response, pauses, expression when I try to be casual with a person, right? To see whether the person responds or ignores me, or is able, or we're in rapport and we're pacing each other and things like that. It's a lot harder to do that on text. I mean, you could see whether the person responds with an emoji if you're talking about pacing, right? But that's pretty much all you can do to calibrate.
Yeah. Melody, I just sent you the link. I just put up the link on WhatsApp. So come on over rather than ask on the comment section on my sharing of the video. So it's not on the, but
I don't see Melody's text.
No, she is no, because she is commenting on my Facebook page. It's my Facebook feed itself. Yeah, but so what were we talking about again? Sorry, I was a bit distracted by Melody.
We were talking about calibrating the level of casualness we can have in communication over text.
Okay, so I start off with casualness with a ha 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 straight off the bat.
Okay.
I go in straight with like the ha ha ha, smiley face. I do all kinds of funny things to be able to see how casual can you get. I go to extreme levels of seeing how the person responds to it. If the person feels more awkward and starts giving like colder response versus if I were to speak more formally, then I know the difference.
Hi, Melody.
Melody just did a humongous gif on my yeah.
come join us on Zoom. So one of the things that I realized in a professional context, I would use some very safe emojis. I use thumbs up. I use the 2 hands. Sometimes I use the smiley.
Yeah, I'm trying to do. Oh, by the way, I tried to do this. I tried to do this on Zoom and see whether it appears on the live stream. It doesn't.
Oh, it doesn't appear on the live Zoom? On the maybe it's just lagging, hasn't shown yet.
No, yeah, it doesn't because I was staring at it just now. Yep, nope, doesn't.
Okay.
Yeah, but so yeah, that's an important note, right? But yeah, one of the major things about this conversation is how do I calibrate? I think I take cues from the other person a lot. I spend a lot of time reading what the person's trying to say, how the person's trying to say things. I start with a little bit more formal, and then I'll bring in the haha, and because I always haha anyway, so it becomes I acclimatize the person to it. So it will bring down the formality down to casualness as much as possible. And I think one of the key parts here is actually talk about sales. Yeah, we're not going to touch dating. Let's talk about sales.
See, I told you.
No, let's talk about sales, right? Sales, a large part of sales is also being able to communicate and connect with the person on an emotional ground. And that requires a certain amount of vulnerability and casualness that comes together. And that therefore, for me, it's always very strongly related back to the ability to create a casualness from the get-go.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of people dropped out at 9 o'clock. Yeah. A lot of people dropped out from watching our video at 9 o'clock.
Well, you could see that. Okay. So, yeah, I was thinking.
Why Melody not joining us?
Yeah, probably not. Okay, we're probably going to be online for another couple of minutes before we end. So I think that the ability to create casualness is important. Also knowing what the context is. I think just now when Ariel was on board, we talked a lot about the human wiring, right, for visual thinking or visual expression, which we've seen all the way from the days of pages where people use ASCII images. It's just that ASCII images have now become more pictorial, and you now have emojis and emoticons and things like that. In fact, emoticons is close to what we used to have when we were using pages in the past.
Yeah, and then we also talked about like the texting generation, which is like me also. I belong to the texting generation where I got used to texting about everything and anything. Like, so to create certain, I'm used to the digital language. I'm used to the digital space and typing with people and helping people through text. I think, and Adriel also touched a little bit more about like how noticing the different types of people, your email, your different formalities, exactly what we talked about during our video as well, right? Like you use emojis at those points, you use emoticons at those points. All these different things are really important things that we need to consider. I think when we talk about this, it's cultural, but not generational and cultural. Like it's in the culture of the generation in a specific area. And then go back to the fact that anthropologically, there's a very strong reason why. Because you feel more safe with a person who speaks your language because our brains are wired this way because that's how we identify our own tribes. And that's how it works.
Yeah, and there's something we didn't talk about was that something sometimes I do with people is I actually use both two modes of communication to the same person. So I send off an email, which can sound fairly formal, and I follow up with a text, which is very casual.
Yeah, okay. So this is then like the official versus unofficial channels, right? It's like, I send you this letter, and then I'll give you a call and go, hey, I just sent you a letter so that you know that you're receiving this letter. Nothing personal, it's just this letter, okay?
Yeah, so I think that also works, right? Sometimes when we communicate with people, sometimes we do need a somewhat formal tone, and we can't be overly casual over channels like emails. Actually, I try not to.
I don't know. I've been highly casual on emails, but I think also one of the major parts about this is sending the text. So it's also whether other people are reading. If you're sending an email or CCing others, you definitely have to make it formal because it is an official address.
Right.
But then you text the person, it's private, right? So I think this is also part of the equation, right? Are you sending this to multiple people? Is this for open public? Or is this like right now, I would not be swearing and saying random things and using a bunch of local language because...
Which you usually do.
Yes,
not.
I also don't. But I'm also saying that like I wouldn't particularly go into that at this moment. I do that with some friends because it's more relevant with them.
But, so if you have a tightly knit group, then you could be more informal. But if you have a group and it's an official thing, you want a formal email followed by, if you want to, just make sure that the relationship wheels are all, to also follow up with a casual message to that person.
I think this is also really funny, right? Because once I send an official email, I can scream across the room and go, "Oh, hey, I just sent you an email,
Yeah. And then that actually works to one of the important aspects of how we communicate and build that relationship with someone else is to, not just leave things in an entirely formal tone. You have another communication channel that we can use emojis or different forms of text, or for you can use your signature haha, whatever it is. But, so with that combination of mediums of communication and different types of tone actually helps with how we can relate to one another better remotely.
I love something you just said here, right? So no matter what, there needs to be an unofficial channel and unofficial and casual channel. Everything else can be formal and semi-formal. But the truth is, if you really want to build relationships over the internet, you need the casual channels.
Yeah, you need some form of casual communication over and above the formal type of communication.
I think that's very important, right? Like, if there's anything I've learned from this the most, is like realization that, that's literally what I do. You can send something on Slack that's formal, and then send on WhatsApp directly to the person that's informal, and then you can do all kinds of funny things. Like it goes back to this. As long as you have an unofficial channel for anything to happen there, like any openness to happen, you can create empathy and emotional connection, actually.
It's about creating space, non-judgmental space, or casual space that people can just talk to one another. So with some of my colleagues, it's actually social media, right? Instagram, we might be posting something, and then we can connect to one another. In other cases, it could be just with colleagues in China, WeChat, that we sometimes text each other stuff, or if something's happening in the country or some interesting things, personal things happening, could text each other. So informal channels become very important in building that relationship and making sure that there's a supportive relationship for each other.
Yeah, in the same sense, separating of even chat channels, like using Kakao versus WhatsApp versus Telegram versus WeChat versus Line versus Message versus Slack. There's so many ways of like creating avenues where you can have the casualness at one point.
Yep, but don't use all of them at the same time. It will confuse the hell out of you and cannot keep track.
That's for sure. Yeah, I've reduced it back down to just WhatsApp now. So
yeah, WhatsApp or Telegram for me. I still have Slack and whatnot with other groups, but it's some of them get neglected over time. I have people who Telegram me and I don't see it for a week. I go like, sorry, not on Telegram much. Or sometimes people Facebook message me. Again, that's not a medium I check very often. And then it's like, hey, sorry, just slow reply. And then I'll bring everybody to WhatsApp. I'll say, hey guys, I'm much more active on WhatsApp rather than LinkedIn message or whatever. Just come over, let's have a chat there, so that I'm more responsive to you. So people at least know.
That sounds exactly like opposite of me. I just realized I do use so much Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, and Telegram. I neglect.
Yeah. So you notice if you Facebook message me, like some other people would do that, like Audrey messages on Facebook groups, right? And
you don't see that reply until like next days, yeah.
Yeah, it's typically right because it's not my main form of communication. Okay, so we digress. I think we can wrap up for today, and thanks for joining us. And we will look forward to doing more live sessions. You realize that even though the topic is about something, we can veer off and talk about something else and just allow it to emerge. It's pretty much how the live
if there's anything I got from this session is you're using emojis or whatever different things, you're using channels again to be able to create intimate relationships with the person by creating an unofficial channel where there's no judgment.
Yes, unofficial channel. Come join us live.
Yes, come join us live. We are happy to have you. There's no judgment. We just tell you how you're stupid. Sorry.
What? and I always enjoy it when we have other people joining us because that creates additional dimension. And that's the fun part of this.
Yep. And then we're talking to people who we don't know whether they're actually caring about what they're listening to. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you for being here. Not that you're not caring, but like we will love it if we end up having a 10% channel next time. So I don't care.
Okay. Hey, thanks everyone. We'll see you in the next time.
Okay, bye.